Welcome to Brutally Honest Talk Radio, where you will learn about an issue minus the BS. We don't always say what you want to hear, but what you need to hear about the issues of the day. Here's your host, Inger, along with Elmo, with his political insight and commentary.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you, Inger. And let's jump right in with this. So there was an article that came out about firearms being the number one cause of death among young people, specifically ages 1 to 19. Guns became leading cause of death among children and teens in 2020, killing more people aged 1 to 19 in the U.S. than vehicle crashes, drug overdoses, or cancer. More than 4,300 died of firearm-related injuries that year, a 29% increase from 2019, according to a research letter published Wednesday in the New England Journal of Medicine. The letter analyzed decades of mortality data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And here's a quote: "In the last 40 years, and almost certainly before that, this is the first time that firearm injuries have surpassed motor vehicle crashes among kids," said a co-author of the letter, Jason Goldstick, a research associate professor at the University of Michigan. Goldstick said homicides rather than suicides made up the majority of firearm deaths among children and teens in 2020. Gun killings, which disproportionately affect younger Americans, went up by 33% from 2019 to 2020. We know, and we've talked about the thing of lying by omission. So here, this isn't quite the same as what we usually see when people are telling a story and leaving out part of a story, but they are leaving out a lot. So let me start by saying this is 2022. And the year that they make reference to in here, like this last line that I'm reading, just happens to still be up, went up by 33% from 2019 to 2020. Okay, they're not mentioning 2021. In 2020, that was the year that the pandemic took off and the George Floyd case and all the rioting, and people were scared going into the election, and the number of guns went up. Like, people were amped up and more on tense and more on edge in 2020, and more likely to be violent. They're not saying the situation. I mean, it's so many people that have been injured or killed, at the hand of a gun, but they're all different situations. So we know that now there's, in a country with 340 million people, there's about 350 million guns that are circulating and floating around. So what needs to happen with this? Well, because there's so many guns out there and so many bad people that got them, you that are listening to us, hopefully you're a good person and you live by the law and you're not a criminal. Hopefully you will be armed and you will learn how to use that firearm and that you will protect yourself. If someone is committing a crime and they're using a firearm, there's a couple things that may happen. One is that the police may get involved, or the person who you're trying to commit the crime against, they may be armed and then shoot back in self-defense, which I'm totally okay with that. That's a win. That's not a loss. For somebody to defend themselves and someone to get shot who was trying to hurt someone. So anyway, this is all part of the talk of how guns may be a bad thing and people don't kill people, guns kill people, and how we need to do something. Like, this is a precursor or a segue into gun control when you hear people talking like this.
Absolutely. And with the CDC, I think it's interesting. They gave the statistics, and like you said, it was during COVID 2020. and they said it was more homicide versus suicide and that sort of thing. Well, for COVID, during COVID, when everybody was on lockdown, and a whole lot of states, some were on lockdown, or many were on lockdown, some were opening. It'd be interesting to see where where the homicides, suicides were. Let me know which states. Secondly, during the lockdown, it's proven that kids were having a rough time. They were depressed. They couldn't get with their friends. They were having a hard time learning. People were in masks. They can't use the social cues that they used to develop, that sort of thing. So we know 2020 was a rough time for kids with all of that going on.
Yeah.
And the CDC, I don't understand. I would expect the CDC to say why, from a psychological point of view or maybe a medication point of view, that there were so many more young people homicides and suicides. That's not the CDC's purview, but the CDC is supposed to tell me psychologically and mentally why this is happening, that sort of thing, and they did. So, and that segues into the CDC, in my point of view, saying that we should have gun control. And again, that's not the purview of the CDC. That's a discussion for Congress. That's a we the people discussion. That's not a CDC regulatory agency discussion.
Yeah, and then it's also interesting when you mentioned CDC, it made me think about, do you remember that in 2020, the Center for Disease Control said that racism was a health threat?
Yes.
All right, so just think about the fact of how that's crossing over and Marvel is overlapping with DC going into another universe that it doesn't have anything to do with. And you're talking about like racism is something like COVID now. It is a condition and it is a disease, but it's of the mind.
Yes.
And it's not something that you can catch like you can catch the flu. It's something that you can catch if you're vulnerable, if you're open, like the way that the Klan recruits people. They always get people that are poor or unemployed or who have had some bad experiences in their life, and they're looking for a scapegoat to blame their problems.
Right. Exactly. Precisely.
Yeah, people die of firearms and car crashes. Every year, the average number of fatal car crashes is about 50,000. So if that number, the number of people that have died from firearms have increased to above that, it's 99% of it is what people are doing and the choices that they're making. Right. And there's one more thing I'll mention, and then let you comment more if you like. And they mention ages 1 to 19 years old. 1, 2, and 3-year-olds are not picking up guns.
Right.
So if they're involved in gun violence, they're being a victim. Now, if that's happening, that means that their parents are not being responsible.
There you go.
I'm sure I've heard of some cases, rare cases, where people shoot their children, or one of their siblings is playing with a gun and it accidentally went off. Whichever the case, if I am not at home and my child gets a hold of my firearm, I'm being irresponsible. If I am home and they get hurt by a firearm, within the house, that's me being irresponsible also.
Exactly. So yeah, that's all. I was gonna go there. Yeah, it's the parents. Where are the parents? And if the parents aren't securing the firearm, just like you said, like they're supposed to,
Yeah.
or if siblings, or younger family members, maybe a cousin or a niece or something like that, can find it, get a hold of it, and accidentally shoot another child. That sort of thing. That's something where the parents or the adults in the situation are not being responsible. And again, the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
I would like to see the states where this circumstances under which is happening. The victim kind of perpetrator, kind of the ages of that, and how many of these are just gang members where the parents are nowhere to be found, or the parents have lost control of their kids, a part of that too. So again, it's a lot of the CDC just puts out, like you said earlier, they just put out this blanket statement and they don't provide any details or any context around it. And then their next statement is, we need gun control. It's like, they need to open the door for questions, and they shut the door for questions and said, this is what we need to do.
And let me remind people about gangs. There's over 30,000 gang members nationwide that are on register at police stations that the police know about, meaning they know their names, their street name, or the gang that they are a part of. Over 30,000 gang members. So just tying that together, 100% of the young men who are in gangs did not have a father in the home. 100%. So just by a dude not breaking and running and being there to raise his children, that's one thing you eliminate. That's one thing you would definitely knock out.
Absolutely. And on the flip side of that, boys need their fathers, and girls need their fathers as well. When girls don't have their fathers, they go out and they become promiscuous and seek attention unhealthy ways, wind up with the kid, or wind up with a bad boyfriend and abuse and that sort of thing. Boys, when they don't have their fathers, they go and get aggressive.
Yeah.
They kind of look for that family structure, and that exhibits its violence.
Yeah, again, like everything is connected. We're not in a vacuum, and things are crossing over in connection. Again, a direct correlation between men in prison and men who grew up without fathers.
Yes.
I mean, a huge amount, like in the 90 percentile.
And yes, it is. And that it's not, even though we'd prefer for the mom and dad to be married, mom and dad can't be married, but the dad is present in the child's life. That's still good,
Yeah.
That's still good. It shows the father taking an interest in the child.
And if the parents are broken up, the boys, they need to live with the father. With of course, visitation, or I don't know why any dude would not want to let his children see his mother unless she has exhibited some evidence of being violent or being just a very risky person.
Right.
And then with the daughters, what you're talking about, most of the women who are strippers and prostitutes did not grow up with a father.
Wow.
So let's drop some facts. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's a reason. There's a reason for everything.
Yes, there is.
All right, and the other main thing that I wanted to talk about, there's another article that came out. I call it the voter suppression myth. That's not what the name of their article is. The name of their article is Opinion, This trend imperils the future of liberalism, democracy, and capitalism. And they're talking about voting, okay? So this is what they actually had to say. The most urgent policy change needed to help dismantle racism in 2022 and going forward is ending the largely unchecked voter suppression that has targeted Black and low-income voters since the 2013 Shelby versus Holder Supreme Court decision gutted Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which expressly prevented states from enacting punitive voting laws that disproportionately disenfranchise historically marginalized groups. All right, so they're throwing all of that out. Again, sift through for the facts. We need a snorkel because we're going and we're trying to cruise and swim through all of this. According to an equality index, in quotation marks, that reveals disparities for Black Americans relative to whites in economic opportunity, education, health, social justice, and civil engagement, received a score of 73%, up 0.2% from a year ago, but well short of the 100% goal of a nation where racial equality is the norm. Oh, okay. What country, is there a country on the planet with 100% racial equality?
Oh, not yet. Apparently, in their eyes, not yet.
Is that located near Zamunda or Wakanda or Kokomo? Where is this? Where is this place?
Oh boy. Okay.
I mean, the goal. Yeah, okay. It's a lofty goal, the goal of 100%. All right, the Equality Index is an aggregate analysis of centuries of structural racism that can be a starting point to crafting policy to dismantle anti-black racism in America. Gerrymandering is the practice of drawing congressional district lines for partisan advantage. In states like Texas and North Carolina, this has meant that Republicans have been able to decrease black congressional representation through gerrymandering despite an increase in overall population of people of color. The GOP-controlled Florida legislature this week adopted Republican Governor Ron DeSantis' proposed congressional map that would add 4 seats likely to go to Republicans, do away with districts now represented by 2 of the state's black U.S. House members, and potentially prompt a federal court challenge to the Voting Rights Act. So I know that was a mouthful.
I think we started the first word you said, opinion. that's where we need to keep that in mind. Opinion. This is what someone thinks. It is definitely not the gospel truth. So this man's opinion, he went on to say that the particular law, he cited the chapter and section and that sort of thing. I would like to know actually what does the chapter and section say? That doesn't, he's just spouting off about it. Well, what does it actually say? Secondly, equality index, really, like you said, there is no equality in any country in Africa, okay? So
Yeah.
equality is, and what do we used to say? What's fair for one person is unfair for another, so there will never be fairness. That's the same thing with equality. Secondly, gerrymander, both sides do it. Seriously, it's called redistricting. Okay, that's all it is. And what it is they do the census every 10 years, and obviously people move and people change their political persuasion for whatever reason, and the political parties want to draw districts that they feel comfortable they can win. So it's not a Republican Democrat thing. It just happens. And secondly, for Florida to end up getting more congressional seats means that more people have moved to Florida. Let's go back. Why have more people moved to Florida? I don't know. In the last section, we were talking about COVID. Well, Florida was open during COVID. Florida went ahead and opened. And Florida is not as expensive to live in as New York, California, Illinois, and Washington State, Washington, D.C., that sort of thing. So that's what that's about.
Right.
Florida is not sitting there and getting more congressional seats because it's a Republican thing.
Right.
They're getting more seats because people are moving down there. I mean, so while this opinion is trying to make it sound that there's some nefarious thing going on and we have to protect voting rights, the bottom line is the guy is noticing that people aren't voting for Democrats and he's upset about it. That's the bottom line. There are no facts in there. His feelings are hurt, period. That's all that is.
And even if it's true with controlling or moving districts or district lines from where people live, and okay, I'm part of this district now, so I'll vote over here instead of vote over there. That I wouldn't care about that. They can cut up my county and do whatever they want to do with it. I'm going to vote. And again, I will say, like I've said before, because this is supposed to be another thing to make black people feel like we are victims. So for that reason, I'm talking to black people now. If any of y'all in any of the 50 states are not able to vote, please send an email to brutehonest@gmail.com and let us know about it, because we want to have a conversation with you and find out why you're not able to vote. I mean, they can't say that they cancel or block them from voting. So they're saying, because you can't do early voting, 2 months in advance and you got to vote within 2 weeks. That's suppression. Please, please listen. If you're in a wheelchair, you got somebody to push you up to the chicken and waffles and get what you want to get or go wherever you want to go. This is not suppression. I mean, the numbers that are so low, why there were only able to be 80 million people that voted for Biden, and he won the freaking election. With only 80 million people, that's not because of not being able to do mail-in ballots. That's because people are not wanting to get up and go out and vote. You know, it's the same thing with the universal health care and trying to make people think that they're being taken advantage of when really it's not as big a problem as you think it is to get medical care. And especially, I told you, among men under 50 most of us do not go to the doctor. But if somebody doesn't have health care, they're trying to tell you that you're being cheated and taken advantage of, and it's a God-given right and all of this. And then, hey, here comes COVID next year. Now, don't believe your doctor, don't get vaccinated, and wear a mask everywhere. And, you know, now healthcare doesn't matter. This is CNN that put this out. Nobody is having a problem. Listen, if your grandmother or your great aunt or somebody is not able to get to the polls, have a conversation with them. First, find out, do they want to vote? And then maybe you or someone in your family can help to get them to the polls on election day. They're 75 years old and they're in a wheelchair. I don't think they need to clock out from the job to be able to go vote.
Right.
That's not what's stopping them.
Exactly. And on that note, you know, folks have, I want to say it's in corporate America specifically, and I don't know if it's a thing across, if it's a government regulation thing or if it's just a company thing. But when I worked in corporate America, they have, you're allowed 2 hours to leave early or come late to go vote.
Mm-hmm.
Period. So
Right.
again, the obstacle is knocked down again. So like you said, I want to know, who are these people that are unable to vote? Because, you know, we were told that, one, we were too stupid to go online. You know, we were told that by Abrams and Biden. And two, we were also told we're too stupid to get an ID, even though a lot of us drive and do everything, cash checks and do everything we need to do.
Right.
So again, what are the obstacles?
Right. They wanna remove the requirement of having ID to be able to vote. We don't know how to go online. We can't find the DMV. We just can't find it.
Right.
You know, I mean, just to take care of what we need to be able to drive and to renew a license. We get, so there are bigger problems at stake here if somebody is not able to get an ID card.
Yeah.
You know, question for the Democrats. Your people that are on welfare, your brides to be across this great land that have to provide their identification when they're getting their food stamps and other welfare, what are they going to do if you take away their ID? Are they gonna stay married to you and be on this wild honeymoon where y'all taking care of them? Or maybe just a photo ID. You know, let's take away the IDs with the pictures on them, where you can really prove who you are. You know, where anybody can change the name and you don't have to verify the signature and all of that. Like, why are you trying to open the door to create more room for voter fraud?
Right.
So, you know, listen, people, while they're talking about how there's voter suppression, and they believe maybe that in Florida or maybe nationwide, this is, you know, it's equally hard for everybody to vote all over the country wherever they are. What they should be doing, or what somebody should be explaining, is about how next time there's not going to be 500,000 uncounted ballots on a ballot the day of the election. All right, they had it. This is what they're saying. when you vote, this is where your vote goes, so that we'll start counting when we wake up on election day. All right. So why doesn't somebody hold them accountable and they help you to navigate to the promised land and a mountaintop where you can go ahead and drop your vote into a ballot box? What are they going to do so that after you vote, your vote actually counts? I'm going to tell you how I'm going to vote. I'm going to stand in line on election day. The most secure, guaranteed way that your vote will get in time, so that when it really matters to make a difference, when the electoral college starts looking at what they have, because they're not going to wait. When they have to wait and it takes 2 or 3 months to count all the votes, the stock market plummets.
Yes.
Everything gets worse. People in foreign countries who have money invested in our banks, they pull their money out because they say the United States is unstable over there. I'm not letting them hold my money. Let me pull this back, at least for 3 months or 6 months. What about this, I don't know, some kind of voter or election reform? You want to change it? Please. Biden isn't talking about this at all, but he announced that he's going to run for re-election. Well, don't you want your votes to count? Do you, Biden, the day after the election, not want to know who the president really is?
Right. That's it. But you know what they're going to say is when they don't win, it was because it was stolen. Not because people didn't want them in.
Yeah.
Because it was stolen. But when they win, everything's okay. So now we're coming up to the midterms in November.
Yeah.
They're going to get a thrashing. I mean, they're going to get spanked at the polls. And I promise you, probably 2 days after it's done, after the votes are counted, they're going to say it was stolen. That's what's going on.
And you know what else? Again, the flip-flopping like a fish back and forth lying from the Democrats. Another part of this article said a form of voter suppression is not being able to hand out water bottles to people waiting in line to vote. That's what they said the Republicans were doing.
Oh, my God.
Now y'all saying that this is so that people can't vote Democrat in districts, where, there may be black people there, because you can't hand out water to black people. That this is somehow voter suppression. Like, y'all started this.
Right. It's like you started it. Yes, that was a Stacey Abrams creature. That was voter suppression. And when in actuality, if folks actually read the legislation, what it says is that no, you cannot have candidates handing out bottles of water to people standing in line, because that amounts to campaigning.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. But if someone wanted to provide bottles of water to people, give it to the elections team, and let the elections team or let the people take out the water bottle, then it's fine. That's it.
Right.
That's it. I mean, it's like, I know here in Georgia, you can't campaign within 500 feet of a polling location.
Right.
And that's strict. They enforce that. So now to say, no, you can't get any water, you're going to stand outside in 200-degree weather, not being able to vote, and that's voter suppression. Come on, people. Think. Y'all, stop, please.
All right, be careful, y'all, because you know that people ignite in the flames at 214 degrees. So that's how close you are to just turning into a gunpowder and igniting.
Wow. I tell you, never know.
Thank you for listening to Brutally Honest Talk Radio. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover, reach out at brutehonestradio@gmail.com. That's BRUT, honestradio@gmail.com.